If I asked you to name Japan's most iconic food, you'd probably say ramen. But ramen is not originally Japanese, and that is exactly why its story matters. Because the real question is not who invented it. It is how Japan took an imported noodle soup and turned it into a national obsession. Not just a meal, not just cheap street food, but something so deeply woven into daily life that it became part of the country's identity. And once you understand how that happened, ramen stops being just ramen. It becomes a story about migration, survival, rebuilding, and reinvention. Ramen's power was never originality, it was adaptation. It didn't arrive in Japan and stay the same. It changed shape by cities, by climate, by workers, by students, by war, by poverty, and by ambition. It became a Tokyo food, a Hokkaido food, a Fukuoka food. And that's the key to understanding ramen. It wasn't built in one place and copied everywhere else. It was remade everywhere it went. That is why ramen is not just one dish. It is a whole system of local identity packed into a bowl. But ramen did not become a national obsession right away. That moment came after World War II. Japan was rebuilding from ruins. Cities had been damaged. Food was scarce. Families were trying to get through each day with as little as possible. In that kind of moment, people do not want luxury. They want something cheap, fast, and filling. Ramen was perfect. Wheat flour became more widely available. Broths made from pork or chicken could stretch a small amount of food into a meal that felt substantial. And street vendors called yatai could set up with very little equipment and serve bowl after bowl to people who were tired, hungry, and just trying to keep moving. That is part of why ramen spread so quickly. It was not fancy. It was not elite. It was practical. A worker could eat it after a long shift. A student could afford it. A family could buy it without making a huge sacrifice. In a country trying to get back on its feet, ramen became more than food. It became fuel. And once it spread, every region began to make it its own. But ramen did not start in Japan. Its roots trace back to Chinese wheat noodle soups brought over in the late 1800s during the Meiji era, when Japan opened more directly to the outside world. Port cities like Yokohama became major entry points for new goods, new people, and new food traditions. Chinese immigrants brought noodle soups with them, and those dishes slowly found a place in Japanese cities. At the time, it was not called ramen the way we know it. Today, it was known by names like shinasoba, and for a long time, it stayed a niche food. It was cheap, it was quick. It was mostly eaten by workers, students, and people moving through busy urban areas. But even then, you can already see the ingredients of ramen's future. It was flexible, it was accessible, and it fit city life. That mattered because once post-war Japan needed a fast, affordable meal for millions of people, ramen was already there waiting to be transformed. This is where ramen stops being just food. It becomes a reflection of place. And you can see that transformation clearly in three iconic styles. First, Tokyo style shoyu ramen. This is the bowl most people imagine when they think of classic Japanese ramen. The broth is usually clear, balanced, and deeply savory. Soy sauce gives it its signature flavor, while chicken, pork, and dashi build the base. Then noodles set often straight and firm. Meito hold the broth without being soft too quickly. It is elegant but not heavy, simple but not plain, and that is exactly why it fits Tokyo. Tokyo is fast, dense, constantly moving. People there need food that works on a schedule, something you can eat quickly during a short lunch break, something that tastes good, fills you up, and gets you back to work or back to the train. Tokyo ramen is built for the rhythm of the city. It is efficient food for an efficient place. But if Tokyo ramen reflects speed, the next style reflects something else entirely. In the north, Hokkaido tells a different story. Hokkaido is colder, wilder. Moreexposed winters. So ramen there had to adapt. That is where miso ramen came in. Instead of a lighter broth, Hokkaido ramen is richer, thicker, and more warming. The miso gives that a deep, savory base. Garlic, ginger, pork stock, and local vegetables make it feel hearty enough to face the cold. The noodles are often thicker too, sometimes wavy, made to stand up to the broth instead of disappearing into it. And the toppings help complete the picture: corn, butter, scallions, and other ingredients that make sense in a northern climate. This is not just a style of ramen. It is ramen designed for survival in winter. A bowl like this does not just feed you. It warms you, it slows you down, it gives you the feeling that you can keep going. But one city took ramen in another direction and made it unforgettable. In the south, Fukuoka created one of the most recognizable ramen styles anywhere: Hakata Tonkotsu. This is the creamy, milky, ultra-rich broth made by boiling pork bones for hours until the liquid becomes thick, intense, and deeply flavorful. It looks almost like soup transformed into something else, something denser, something more extreme. The noodles are usually thin and straight, which helps them cook fast and pair with the richness of the broth. And in Fukuoka, ramen is closely tied to yatai culture, the street stall tradition that helped shape the city's food identity. THISISWH, meal. It becomes craft, it becomes competition, it becomes obsession. Shop owners and street vendors spent years trying to perfect a single thing: the best possible bowl of tonkotsu ramen. Not 100 dishes, one dish, done extremely well. That is what makes Hakata ramen so powerful. It takes a simple idea and pushes it until it becomes iconic. And these three styles are only the beginning. Across Japan, nearly every region created its own version of ramen. Some places leaned into soy sauce, some leaned into miso, some built richer broths, some focused on noodles, toppings, or texture. From Kitakata to Yokohama to Kumamoto, ramen kept absorbing local identity. And that is why there is no single bowl that represents all ramen in Japan. Each region turned it into something personal, something local, something that reflected its own people and its own pace of life. That flexibility is a huge part of ramen's success, because ramen could belong anywhere. And once a food can belong anywhere, it can become everything. That is the real secret behind ramen. It never stopped changing. Today, ramen can't be 5 menu meal attestation standard. It can be a carefully crafted bowl in a tiny shop with a line outside the door. It can be a global chain experience where every detail is customizable. It can be polished fine dining dish. It can be vegan dish. It can be experimental. It can be traditional. It can be hyper modern. Datability kepe. Evolving is why ramen never feels old. It can be street food and high art at the same time. It can be simple enough for a rushed lunch, but special enough to plan a trip around. That range is rare, and it is one of the main reasons ramen stayed relevant for so long. Because ramen did not become famous by freezing itself in the past. It became famous by moving with the times, and that is why ramen fits so naturally into Japanese life. It is the bowl you eat when you are tired. The bowl you eat when you are hungry. The bowl you eat when you want comfort. The bowl you eat when you want to taste the city. The bowl you eat when you are traveling or working late or meeting a friend after school. It has a place in ordinary life but also in memory. People do not just remember ramen as food. They remember where they ate it, who they ate it with, what city they found it in, what kind of day they were having. That is what makes ramen more than a dish. It is a container for experience. A bowl of ramen can feel personal, local, and universal all at once. So how did an imported Chinese noodle soup become Japan's most iconic national food? Not because it was original, but because it changed. It adapted to cities, to workers, to climate, to war, to rebuilding, to local taste. To modern life, ramen became Japan's national obsession. Not because it stayed the same, but because it never stopped evolving. And that is what makes it so much more than noodles in broth. It is a story about how a country took something from outside, remade it in its own image, and turned it into a cultural symbol that still changes every day. Now I want to hear from you. What's your favorite style of ramen? And what's the best bowl you've ever had? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoy this deep dive into the culture behind the food we eat, subscribe for more stories like this, and I'll see you in the next one.